Hi, I'm Don Safer from Nashville with the Tennessee Environmental Council, and I have several items. I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you for having a public meeting here in the community. The first involves the deadly radioactive waste that comes out of these reactors. Once these fuel rods run for long enough that they can't be run anymore, they are millions of times more radioactive than the fuel rods that went in, the enriched uranium fuel rods. They're full of all sorts of deadly and toxic substances, and should any of those get out into the community, escape, then we're going to have a major public health crisis. You mentioned the waste confidence decision. That was brought to the attention of the NRC by a lawsuit from citizen groups. The court responded and said, yes, you have a point that this waste is not being dealt with right. Watts Bar is not the only project in the nuclear industry that has taken all these years. I mean, the radioactive waste is not, you've never figured out a place to put this waste from day one of making it, which actually predates Watts Bar's construction. And so every fuel rod that has been used up, and if they're not spent, they're highly loaded with radiation and with substances that are incompatible with life as we know it. Every fuel rod that's been created by by Unit 1 is still there. And currently, they're packed into this fuel pool that was designed for far less volume than is currently in it. I am a little bit relieved that there is a plan to have an independent spent fuel storage facility on site. That is of some solace to me in my concerns about this material, but it's not a hardened on-site storage. These canisters have a pretty thin stainless steel barrier protecting us from this stuff, and then a thick concrete overpack. But I just wanted to bring up that the issuing of this license was held up by the waste confidence. Now it's a waste storage decision that's been made. Many of us that have studied this waste confidence decision feel like it does not really address the issue. That issue is going to be going to the court. I don't know that it will hold up the licensing again, but I just wanted to bring it up to the community. You all don't really have to respond, but that everybody in the community realizes that this is what you have in your, at Watts Bar, in your area, in our area, a virtually permanent waste facility for high-level radioactive waste. There's no prospect of moving it out anywhere in the near term, middle term, or even long term. The waste confidence, the waste storage decision has said that every 100 years you'll be changing the overpack or changing these canisters. So I just want to let everybody know that. Now, in terms of questions, this seismic issue, which was addressed in the presentation, is of great concern. Since this reactor was originally designed, the design basis accident, as Mr. Skaggs said, has had to be upgraded. But the basic changes are not being required. You don't even know what the changes are until 2017. And how can you possibly license another reactor to go online when you don't know what the proper earthquake mitigation strategies would be in terms of the nuts and bolts of this facility? And I have another question, but you can go ahead and answer that one. Hold on.
So we received a comment that some of our microphones aren't working well for the webinar people, so I think we're trying to switch around microphones. We do have a wired microphone, Bill, if you would like to use this one.
Okay, I borrowed this. Is that one coming through okay? People, thank you. So, Don, that's a good question relative to the seismic. And I'm going to try and avoid getting into too much technical jargon. But every plant in this country was built and designed to what's called a safe shutdown earthquake, a certain level. And it's not just a Richter scale number like 6.2 on the Richter scale. There's actually what's called a ground motion response spectra, because various components, structures, electrical relay boxes, and so on will have various reactions to a seismic event at certain frequencies, right? So when you talk about seismic evaluation, you have to look at what is the frequency, what's the ground motion response spectrum across the frequencies. And I think you probably understand that, but maybe some of those in the audience don't. So several years ago, there was before Fukushima, there was a study by the United States Geological Survey that basically reevaluated the seismic hazard in the central and eastern part of the United States. And so as part of that, the NRC had already embarked upon an effort to require industry to go and do an evaluation of what were the implications of that new information coming out from the USGS. While that was going on, Fukushima happened and obviously accelerated the agency's interest in licensees evaluating their sites relative to this new earthquake seismicity study. And so every plant in the country was required asked to provide information on their new seismic hazard based on this information. So with respect to Watts Bar, Watts Bar's evaluated seismic response was higher than what they were licensed to. Okay? But it's across a different spectrum. So in some places, it's probably pretty close. In other places, it's higher than what their safe shutdown earthquake is in their design basis. But you have to remember that in the years since Watts Bar Unit 1 was licensed, there's been several studies that have been done and activities to evaluate plants relative to ability to respond to a seismic. And in particular, something about a decade or two ago called the Integrated
External Events Evaluation.
IEEE External Events Evaluation. And so many plants, including Watts Bar, leverage the analysis that was done and to expand their robustness relative to seismic events. As part of the current efforts related to Fukushima, post-Fukushima activities, plants were required to provide their seismic evaluation. Watts Bar is in the category where they're going to do what's called a seismic probabilistic risk assessment, and that's the product you talked about that will be delivered in 2017. But in the interim, we asked every plant in the country that had a new ground motion response spectra that was higher than their safe shutdown earthquake to do a expedited evaluation as to looking at that and where the potential vulnerabilities might be, do an assessment of what might need to be put in place now. And Watts Bar did that. And in particular, I think Mr. Skaggs talked about some of the things that they've done to make transformers, the safe shutdown transformer, for example, more robust by putting in more robust bolting so that it would not shake and have an adverse response if there would be a safe shutdown earthquake. And the other thing, and Victor might want to weigh in here, because Victor, as the region administrator of Region 2, actually had oversight of the North Anna nuclear power plant, which, as many of you know, several years ago had a seismic event where it was above the safe shutdown earthquake. And I think Victor's sort of firsthand observations of how the plant withstood that and what activities the licensee had done and did to relative to that event might provide some additional insight as to why we're comfortable that with plants like Watts Bar and others, that because of the robustness of the design and the construction, that it is reasonable to have plants continue to operate while we resolve the analytical issues.
That's a long answer.
So I think, Bill, you gave the summation of the North Anna event. Bill alluded to the safe shutdown earthquake as being the licensing basis for which a plant has to be designed to be able to continue to maintain the safety of the plant. If a seismic an earthquake would occur with the ground motion of that magnitude. In August of 2011, August 23rd, I believe, an earthquake near Mineral, Virginia, epicenter near Mineral, Virginia, did result in ground motion at the North Anna site that exceeded its safe shutdown earthquake. Both units tripped offline, loss of off-site power, all diesel generators started. One of them was manually tripped offline after about 40 minutes because of a coolant leakage unassociated with the event. But the plant was safe, operators performed well, and there was no significant damage to the plant. There was some cosmetic concrete spalling, but no significant damage or impact on safety. What that told us, what it indicated, and there have been some other indications as well, alluded to the Fukushima accident and the impact of the earthquake there, is that the plants are built in a robust manner and have a degree of margin to significant earthquakes that gives us assurance that plants can withstand the ground motion associated with most seismic events expected in the areas of the central and eastern U.S. Having said that, there is the need to complete the evaluation that Bill alluded to, and we'll engage licensees on a site-specific basis on what's needed as a result of that.
As a follow-up, and an observation, in the early 70s, it was determined that there was a certain level of earthquake risk in terms of what the probable maximum earthquake might be, and in the last 40 years, it's had to be upgraded. We really don't know how much it's going to have to be upgraded in the next 40 years, but it is a fact that the melting of the ice caps, which is occurring, is causing the Earth's crust to have to adapt and realign. And that has created more earthquakes and stronger earthquakes. The gentleman that you spoke to in Japan, who was there for 8 days, who said that was a bigger earthquake and tsunami than we would have ever dreamt of. That's a cautionary tale that our best estimates sometimes can be greatly exceeded. And not only, and you can say, okay, we can't have a tsunami in the Tennessee Valley, but the Tennessee River is a series of reservoirs. And TVA has done a lot of work on the reservoirs. They've done a lot of analysis. We can only hope that their work will pay off should a major earthquake hit, in combination with high pool levels. But there is a series of dams, and you could have a cascading series of dam failures that could be triggered by a much bigger earthquake than we ever dreamed possible, like what happened in Japan. And so the margins of safety that are really demanded, given the gravity of a problem, of an accident, are pretty daunting. And I wonder, as a question, how you all evaluate TVA's dam safety analysis, which really you haven't had all that long. And who on the staff, or are you employing an independent analysis group to validate the dam safety? TVA acknowledges some of the dams upstream have issues. We know about the Douglas Dam, we know about the Cherokee Dam. We know they've done work on the dam in North Carolina, the real tall one, that has had no steel in it because it was built during World War II. So how do you validate TVA's dam safety analysis to make sure that they've really?
That's a good, and I may need Jesse or Michelle to help augment this answer. We actually have on my staff somebody, and sometimes it gets a little bit of humor, a dam safety officer, right? And so he's an individual that interfaces with organizations like FERC, Army Corps of Engineers, Tennessee Valley Authority, relative to understanding things that they are doing to understand what sort of risks are associated with the particular dams. And so I don't know if Michelle or Jesse want to augment that a little bit. So we do have some interface there. In our new reactors office, Office of New Reactors, which is looking at construction and design of new reactors, we do have a number of different what we call ologists, hydrologists, seismologists, meteorologists, volcanologists, right, that look at a lot of the specific issues that you're talking about, and not just dam safety, but also weather-related events, what's changing in the environment, and so on. And so they have provided us a lot of assistance relative to WATSPAR specifically in evaluating the adequacy of the dams and the dam management program, and in particular, some of the things that were described earlier in the meeting relative to the NISCO barriers and so on. So Jesse, you want to?
Yeah, I just want to add an example of that is TV provided a licensing request a couple of years ago based on their probable maximum blood levels that they want to have that raised. And so we did look at, as part of that application that they submitted, the dam stability that they had proposed, including hydrological modeling that they provided, which used updated methodologies that I believe were consistent in part of their approach for Fukushima activities for flooding. So, we issued that license amendment for that increased level, I believe, in the last couple of months. So we do take a look at those changes as they occur. We do use our licensing process to perform the technical reviews.
And if I can,
So Jesse, so we did that audit that you were talking about, and I know there were 2 civil inspectors who went on that audit actually looking at the dam reliability, how TV was evaluating dam failures, had some questions that they posed to TVA, and it caused them to actually look at it and make sure we're being properly evaluated as far as failures.
and then one other point I want to make, Don, you had a number of things that were embedded in your comments and your questions, but I did want to take on one aspect of it, and that is a mitigating strategies order that we issued post-Fukushima to require licensees to put in appropriate mitigating strategies to protect the plant against a beyond design basis event. It's not intended to predict what that event would be, but what would be the symptoms of that event, which is basically an extended loss of all AC power, which was truly what the challenge was in Fukushima, which led to those, horrific accidents there with the reactors there. And so it's an approach that we're evaluating. We mentioned the inspection next week that is intended to be basically an all hazards. We can't predict what the event is going to be, but we want to be able to make sure that it is robust enough and protected from seismic and wind and earthquake and tornadoes and flooding, that mitigating strategy can be effective to make sure the core is cool, the containment is cool, and the spent fuel pool is cool. And so that's the ultimate goal of the mitigating strategies.
Well, are those, and that's the flex building that I've had the opportunity to tour, to go into, and it's definitely an impressive structure. But the question has come up as to whether, several questions have come up, but as to whether the training for the use of that building is done to the same level of multiplicity that the training in the reactor itself is done. And what's the terminology, Dave? Oh, I'm sorry. It's safety grade and redundant. That's is the equipment and everything in there safety grade and redundant?
Yeah, so I guess I could start there. No, it's not required to be safety grade, but there is redundancy in the equipment, and it's not the mitigating strategy, the equipment. The mitigating strategies order does deal with the entire strategy. That's equipment, that's procedures, that's actions that are required to, as Bill alluded to, cool the plant, assure containment integrity, and ensure that the spent fuel remains covered in the spent fuel pool. So the inspection that will occur next week will not only look at equipment, it will look at procedures, and look at timelines, and look at training, et cetera, to make sure that in the unlikely event the licensee has to implement this strategy, that they can be successful in doing so. And the flex building is just it's just a building to house some of the equipment that could be used in the event it's needed.
I'll let somebody else ask some questions. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Doug.